A kind waitress paid for an old man's coffee. The morning sun filtered through the large windows of Murphy's diner, casting long shadows across the red vinyl booths. Sarah wiped down the counter for the third time that hour, her movements slow and methodical. The diner was quiet, save for the gentle hum of the coffee machine and the occasional clink of dishes from the kitchen. She had been working at Murphy's for 2 years now, ever since she dropped out of nursing school. The decision still weighed heavily on her heart, but her mother's illness had left her no choice. Someone had to work and someone had to care for Mom. Sarah had chosen both burdens, carrying them with the same quiet grace she brought to everything else in her life. The bell above the door chimed softly, and Sarah looked up to see an elderly man shuffling inside. His gray hair was slightly disheveled, and his brown jacket looked like it had seen better days. The fabric was worn at the elbows, and one of the buttons hung by a single thread. He moved carefully, as if each step required consideration, and chose a booth by the window where he could watch the street outside. Sarah approached with her notepad, offering her warmest smile. "Good morning, sir. What can I get you today?" The old man looked up at her with tired eyes that held a hint of sadness. "Just coffee, please. Black." "Are you sure? We have fresh pancakes this morning, and our breakfast special is really good." Sarah's voice was gentle, encouraging. He shook his head slowly. "Just coffee." "Thank you." Sarah poured the steaming coffee into a white ceramic mug and set it before him. The man wrapped his weathered hands around the cup as if drawing warmth from it. She noticed how thin his fingers were, how carefully he held the mug. For the next hour, Sarah went about her duties, refilling the man's coffee twice without being asked. Each time, she lingered for a moment, hoping he might want to talk or order something more. But he simply nodded his thanks and returned to gazing out the window. The breakfast rush was lighter than usual, and Sarah found herself stealing glances at her solitary customer. There was something about him that tugged at her heart. Maybe it was the way he sat so quietly, or how he made that single cup of coffee last so long. She had seen lonely people before. Murphy's attracted them like a beacon. But this man seemed different. He carried himself with a dignity that spoke of better times. When the morning crowd thinned, Sarah decided to check on him again. "How's the coffee, sir? Can I get you anything else?" The man looked up, and for a moment his expression softened. "The coffee is perfect, dear." "You're very kind." "I'm Sarah," she said, extending her hand. "Henry," he replied, his handshake firm despite his frail appearance. As the clock neared 11, Henry reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small worn wallet. Sarah watched as he opened it and counted out coins, quarters, dimes, nickels. His movements were careful, deliberate. After a long moment, he looked up with embarrassment coloring his cheeks. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I thought I had enough, but I'm a few cents short." Sarah felt her heart constrict. She had seen this before, but it never got easier. Without hesitation, she reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a $5 bill, money she had been saving for her mother's prescription. "Don't worry about it, Henry. It's on the house today." "Oh, I couldn't let you do that," Henry protested. But Sarah was already taking his empty cup. "It's just coffee," she said with a smile that reached her eyes. "Sometimes we all need a little kindness." Henry's eyes glistened and he nodded slowly. "Thank you, Sarah. You have no idea what this means to me." As he stood to leave, Henry paused at the door and looked back. "You're a special young woman, Sarah. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." The door closed behind him with a gentle chime, leaving Sarah alone with the afternoon sunlight and the lingering warmth of a good deed done quietly. 3 days passed before Sarah saw Henry again. This time, he was accompanied by a man in an expensive suit who carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to being in charge. Sarah greeted them both warmly, but noticed the suited man watching her intently. "Sarah," Henry said, his voice stronger than before, "I'd like you to meet my attorney, Mr. Davidson." Sarah shook the lawyer's hand, confused but polite. "Nice to meet you. Your usual coffee, Henry." "Actually," Henry said, settling into the same booth by the window, "I think we'll both have the breakfast special. And Sarah, when you have a moment, could you join us? There's something I need to tell you." Curiosity prickled at the back of Sarah's mind, but she served their breakfast and waited for the diner to empty before sliding into the booth across from them. Henry folded his hands on the table and looked directly at her. "Sarah, I want you to know that what you did the other day, paying for my coffee, it changed something in me. I had been testing people, you see, testing their character when they thought no one important was watching." Sarah frowned, not understanding. Mr. Davidson cleared his throat. "What Mr. Sterling is trying to say is that he's been looking for someone with genuine kindness, someone who helps others without expecting anything in return." "Sterling." Sarah repeated the name, sounding familiar. Henry smiled for the first time since she'd known him. "Henry Sterling. I own Sterling Industries." The words hit Sarah like a gentle wave. Sterling Industries, the tech company whose buildings dominated the downtown skyline. She had heard of Henry Sterling, the billionaire philanthropist, but never imagined the tired old man in the worn jacket could be him. "I've been searching for the right person to run my new foundation," Henry continued. "Someone who understands what it means to struggle, but chooses kindness anyway. Someone who would pay for a stranger's coffee with money she probably needed herself." Sarah sat in stunned silence as Mr. Davidson slid a folder across the table. "The position comes with a six-figure salary and the responsibility of distributing millions to help people like you helped Mr. Sterling." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. "I don't understand. I just bought you coffee." "No," Henry said gently. "You saw someone who needed help and you helped. No questions asked. No judgment. That's exactly the kind of person I want making decisions about who deserves a second chance." 6 months later, Sarah stood in her new office overlooking the city. A photo of her mother, now receiving the best medical care available, sat on her desk. Through the window, she could see Murphy's Diner in the distance, where it all began with a simple act of kindness. She had learned that Henry had been visiting diners and restaurants across the city, testing people's character. Some had ignored him, others had been dismissive or rude. But Sarah had seen a person who needed help, and she had helped. Sometimes Henry would join her for lunch, and they would talk about the foundation's work. But he never let her forget the lesson of that morning. Kindness, freely given, has the power to change everything. The greatest gifts, Sarah realized, often come disguised as ordinary moments, waiting for someone with the heart to recognize them.